Hello, dear fellow humans. Welcome. Happy Easter. Anybody here for the first time? Please raise your hand. One, welcome. Welcome. So people are busy doing Easter morning, I can see. Huh, interesting. Of course. So please take a moment to either stay in silence if you wish, or ding ding, turn to your neighbor and greet them, and maybe, let's say, tell them something you really like about yourself. Let's just blow the lid off. It doesn't have to be, Nobel Prize good, but just something that you like about yourself, or alternatively, something you've done in this lifetime that you're really glad you did. And you're proud of, maybe, as well. So, in what shall we take refuge? The world is so remarkably unstable, stunningly unstable. And so taking refuge in that which is awake might be a wise idea. And then what is it that I discover when there's presence and awakeness? What's really true? Another useful refuge. And then in one's community of practice and the community of those beings who have awakened in their lifetime. So there's this whole lineage that we come by too. So please join me when it... Is that coming out there? To the degree it makes sense for you. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. We gather together to support each other in this noble undertaking of waking up. And what does it mean to wake up? To take this refuge practice to its action, its true meaning is to be aware of what's happening here and now. To awaken from the dreams of past and future, to notice what's really happening in the body. What's really happening at the sense doors. A human being is one remarkable mass of sensitivity, sensitive to sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches. And that whole realm of the mind, of thoughts and emotions and memories and plans. One activity we can do, one strategy of awakening, is to form the intention to stay with the breath, the sensations of breathing in the body, to the best of our ability, and to use that intention and that experience of sensation to help illuminate everything else that happens. So it's not a battle. The goal isn't to get rid of, quote, interruptions. The goal is with sweet, loving compassion, kindness, to be present here and now with this breathing in that's occurring now. With this breathing out, with this wandering mind, in a way, our task is to let go of the suffering that's caused by wanting something to be different. Each breath is available as a direct experience. Mindfulness and the sensations of breathing co-arising in this moment. And we can attend to them from the very first inkling that there's going to be a breath until its beginning, through its rising to fullness, and then its decline and ending. And please notice the subtlety of the effort that's required to do this. Are you tensing muscles that are unnecessary? The practice of awakening is, from its very first step, completely non-violent, non-coercive. It's just waking up, noticing what's happening. It's a movement toward accepting what is in the moment. And through that acceptance, awareness opens. Sometimes it's possible to notice the very moment when the mind begins to slip away and form a thought. Other times, it could be minutes while the mind wanders into different fields, past, future, old conversations, memories, emotion states. Whether waking up occurs a second after the thought begins or minutes, it's still the same. Sometimes then the mind will go into some papancha, mental proliferation. What's wrong with me? I can't control this thing. I should have done something different, etc., etc. This too then offers a perfect opportunity for waking up. Oh yes, self-criticism, self-hatred. Back to the breath. We are planting the seeds of concentration and mindfulness, patience energy, delight. Amazing how this can all happen through something so simple as being alive in the present moment, inhabiting each breath. we can also notice, in addition to the effort that we're making, is the attitude skillful? Is the attitude arising from love and compassion, wisdom? Or is it somehow colored by wanting, greed, desire, aversion, disliking? One intention that can help is, for the period of this practice and beyond, I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. I aspire to accept myself and the experience of this moment exactly as it is. And then we practice with this intention. Whatever arises has already arisen. Why not accept it? Why not embrace it? Perhaps not to cultivate it, but also not to push it away. This moment is like this. This sensation is unpleasant. These thoughts are pleasant. And in this way, we practice not to arrive somewhere someday, but to be here now, which is the only someday we actually have, right now. we are approaching the end of this time of sitting together. Notice if that changes anything. It's not that we're going to stop practicing, we're just going to change the form from sitting to standing and movement. Perhaps take a moment to scan through your body to see how it is, see what sensations are present. Warmth, cool, at ease in discomfort. Position. And please be invited to bring awareness into the face, into the lips and the cheeks and the eyes. Maybe let your eyes move around inside their beautifully lubricated sockets a bit. Perhaps a few clockwise turns or counterclockwise or both. And then noticing the intention and then letting your eyes open slowly. Opening them with great attention to the eyelids, and notice how seeing is born. There wasn't seeing, and then there is seeing. Out of nowhere. So we'll now, in a few moments, go on to some mindful movement with Jim. I'll go be with the children for a little bit, then we'll have Avi on announcements, and then I'll be back. A little talk about Easter. Not my full Easter talk, but it's funny, it seems like just yesterday I did that. It wasn't yesterday, was it? I had more than a minute or two of laughter, hilarity the other day. I went skiing with my daughter, and one thing after another we couldn't find, and then I wear orthotics, and I took the orthotics out, and then I lost one. Right here, couldn't find it. And so we thought, well, there it is. It's kind of the day. And then I said, do you think it would mean I've truly lost my mind if I couldn't find the other one now? She said, I think so. And then, I don't know how it happened, but I couldn't find the other orthotic. And it was kind of embarrassing to be laughing that hard. People were going by, and the two of us could not stop laughing. It's like, God, some days are like that, though, aren't they? It's just. So, Mr. Jim, would you like to take the baton? Hello to those of you that are joining us on the internet. Welcome. Happy Easter.
Okay, here we are, standing. Maybe rocking up on the toes and back on the heels. There's a Qigong routine that has a movement like this called, it's called what? I just forgot it. Yeah, I lost my mind. It comes from hanging out with you. The bubbling spring, that's what it is, the bubbling spring. So we're standing in a pool created by a little spring, and we're just drawing energy up into the body each time we rise on the toes. The bubbling spring is filling us with energy. I might as well do the rest of the routine. Okay. So let's get our feet parallel and our knees soft, and kind of position yourself like you're just about to sit on a stool. So your tailbone is kind of anticipating making contact with a stool behind you. The tailbone's directed downward. The spine rises out of the pelvis area and up into the shoulders. There's a nice framework for our breath. Take a nice deep breath and a long exhale. Feel that whole framework open and release. And once more. Then we'll sink as we exhale and interlock the fingers, come up and press overhead. And this is called brushing the clouds. So we breathe in and then move over to one side and brush the clouds in that direction, and then breathe into the center and breathe out to the side. There's a YouTube video of this from a Chinese teacher, and there's this shrill voice that says, Z? Who? Who is out? Z is in. Who? And release. And we open the stance. When we open the stance, we point the toes sort of towards the corners. And then we're going to do semi-squats. We want the knees to follow the direction of the toes. We don't want the knees to come in. We don't want the knees to go out. We don't want the knees to go out beyond the edge of the toe. So we want to protect the knees. But cross the wrists. Maybe fold the thumb around the ring finger and the pinky. And then point to one side and sink like you're pulling a bow and arrow, and then turn to the other side and sink, protecting the knees. Don't go overboard. So it's an exhale over here. Inhale to the center. Exhale. So we're opening the chest and allowing the meridians to loosen up and flow better across the heart and the lungs. And once more on this side. And once more on the other. And then slowly come in. We'll take a breath and move our toes and our heels a little bit closer, and then a little bit closer. Full breath. Then when we get back to a neutral position, our feet should be parallel again, and we sink. Let the tailbone reach for that stool and pull the shoulders back. And then open the hands in front of us and press up with one palm and press down with the other, and then release and come to the center. So we exhale, inhale, touching heaven and earth. That's the name of this particular gesture. And the purpose is to free up the meridians that feed the liver and the spleen, which are crucial filters in our system. And just move lymphatic fluid through those vital organs, detoxifying, rejuvenating us. Once more over here, and once more on the other side. Then we come to stillness and just feel the effects of this movement. Maybe the breath is a little deeper now. Shoulders are softer after stretching in this kind of complex way. And then bringing our attention to our neck. Just get the general feeling of how tight it is or how relaxed it is. Then putting our hands on our hips, we just take the chin and turn it towards one shoulder and then come back to the other. We can work with the breath here again. So we breathe into the center and breathe out as the chin moves towards the shoulder. We don't want to push and strain the neck. We just want to go out a good little arc to stretch, breathing into the center, out to the side. Then we put the hands on the small of the back and bring the elbows back and continue to turn out towards the side, in towards the center. You may feel different tendons and ligaments and muscles stretching now. There's a whole series of different muscles that hold our head up, and so we get a chance to stretch each one in these different gestures. And the third section for this gesture is bringing the hands in front of the heart. So notice that the wrists are above the elbows and the elbows below the shoulders. So there's a round, like you're hugging a tree, but not squeezing it to death, just hugging it. And turn. And the idea now is to stretch from the upper spine up into the neck, because you're holding the shoulder blades apart a little bit. You can feel the stretch going deeper into the spine, the upper part. Okay, and relax the arms, just feel the effects. Open the stance again, remembering our knees. We're going to put our hands on our knees with the thumbs on the outside of the kneecap and the fingers on the inside. And again, we're opening the shoulder blades away from the spine. And we turn and look over one shoulder and put all the weight on that leg. The knee is above that knee, that toe. Then when you switch to the other side, that knee is above the other toe. So we protect the knees, we stretch the spine, stretch the neck that we've just been loosening up. And they call this the bear. And there's a little poem about the mama bear lumbering down the hill looking for berries for her cubs, just scanning left and scanning right. Okay, once over this shoulder, and then over the other one. And again, we'll take a big breath and move the toes in, move the heels in, come back to the center. And then be careful for your with your back on this one. We're going to do a forward bend. And anyone that has problems with their back, just skip it. But before we start, I'll just demonstrate one part of it, which is we're going to reach back and put our hands on the back of the calf and pull. And at the same time that we're pulling, we're inhaling. And so that we create this bellows effect by expanding the lungs down into the diaphragm. That pushes against the kidneys from the inside. And then the forward bend pushes against the kidneys from the outside. So there's this, and that's why we're pulling gently. So exhale first. Breathe in and out. Stay extended and breathe in. And then take 2 or 3 breaths to fold in half. And there's no points for touching the floor, just go where. The idea is to open up the gaps between the vertebrae. So concentrate on softening the spine, surrendering to gravity. Wherever you end up, that's where you end up. And once you feel soft in the shoulders, reach back and grab the back of your calf and breathe in and pull. Then release. Breathe in again and pull. Release. And once more. And release and come back up. So that's a little massage for the kidneys. Then we open the stance one more time. Soft fists at the waist. Soft fist is a fist you can see through. And then open to the side and sink. Come back to the center. Open to the in front with one arm and then the other arm. And then to the other side. So again, relax the neck. As you're reaching, you're releasing the shoulders, releasing the neck. The legs keep pumping energy up from the earth into the spine. And then you're reaching and opening channels for that energy to flow out to the fingertips. And then come back. That's where the soft fists come in. Breathe in, full breath. Work your way back to the center. And then the bubbling spring. So up on the toes, back on the heels. Hands and back like we did with the other one, where we open the chest. And hands in front. Open the rib cage in the back. So that's the 8 pieces of brocade. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Sangha. And good morning, Sangha out in internet land. Kirsten, where is Kirsten? Kirsten. All right, well, maybe she'll show up. My name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here, and we're going to conduct the very ancient ritual of announcements. And we'll look for Kristen so she can come in. Kristen! Kirsten. I have 3 friends who are named Kristen, and Kirsten is the only Kirsten. And it's been 2 years and it still confounds me. Okay, three. No, it's been 2 years. I've only been, I know it feels like longer. It does, to me too. Kirsten is our volunteer coordinator. Would you like to do some volunteer stuff?
Sure, I can. So we're doing really well on volunteers, but there's always places that more people can help. One thing is we would really like to have one more consistent AV volunteer. Amanda's up there today doing an awesome job. Thank you, Amanda. That's so essential because there's so many people that join us in our Sangha from far away, even other countries, and that makes it possible for them to be with us here. So we need one more person who can commit to about once a month, and that would be wonderful. And if we had that many, then you actually don't have to do once a month. It's just good to have about 5 or 6 people on that team, so we're all good. And then I want to mention that we would like to, I've been talking with David, one of our community members who's always done a lot of the gardening stuff around here, and we want to schedule a gardening day, not this David, different David, and we wanted to try Saturday, July 13th, kind of like keep a couple dates through the summer to keep everything nice out there. We'd really like someone to step up and help organize that. It would be really simple. I can show you what you'd need to do. But if nobody steps up, we'll still do it, and I'll help organize it. And it would just be a part day doing the garden. And anyone who was involved in that in February is still on my list for the sign up. So you'll get a notification. But if you are not on that list and you want to be a part of that list, please come see me and I will add you. And then also, we have a wonderful teacher now with the children, but we still want people to help volunteer. So there's always lots of availability for that. We'd like there to be at least one other person with the teacher for each hour on Sunday. And then I think that's it. Housekeeping is doing really well, except I'd like to get a few people who wouldn't mind taking the compost home with them once a month or so. Melanie always does it. Where's Melanie? She's wonderful. She's our housekeeping team lead. And I'd like to unburden her with that because we don't have compost pickup here because it's just not very much. It's only a little bit. So if you're willing to take it home on a Sunday once a month, come see me and I'll get you signed up. Other than that, that's all my volunteer announcements. But our NVC class is starting on Tuesday. It is full. However, I have some books here for students who are planning to take the class. I have a few for sale. If you'd like to buy one, come and see me, but just for the students in the class. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I would like to put in an additional word about the whole issue with the classroom and the teacher. It would be really useful for us if when you sign up, if you were to sign up on a somewhat regular basis, and regular basis could be everything from, twice a month, every other week, or it could be the same weekend of every month, or it could be every other month on the same weekend, that will help assure that we have a constant flow of volunteers without having to worry from week to week whether it's going to be filled, because the way the current policy is that for any amount of time where there is only the teacher and no volunteer, the classroom needs to be closed because the teacher needs at least one volunteer for support. So getting on the classroom list is really easy to do. You open up our homepage, you go to the top left corner and you click on the link. That is all that you have to do. And just fill in your contact information. We would really appreciate that. In terms of knowing what is going on here, we've got these handy dandy little news sheets that come out every week, and they are posted all over the center. And if you want to grab one of these, you can know what's going on. If you look at our homepage, the website, you will know what's going on. In addition, if you'd like to receive emails to your inbox to let you know about coming events, please sign up on the contact list form that is there on the back table, or is it the front table? I always forget. But anyway, on that table over there, and that would allow you to start receiving emails. I would just like to say one more thing about volunteering. It's not specifically for the center, but there was a news item that the Pacific Northwest is in a blood emergency, that with all of the rains and all of the flooding, that they need all blood types all over the region, and that it's the lowest it's been in quite some time. So if you are called to give blood, they could really use it. And I know that I'm making an appointment as well. In terms of things that are coming up, we've got this week, the Basics of Mindfulness class for spring 2019 is starting. I believe that we are still accepting people for that. The first Saturday retreat on May 4th is happening. That will be with Doug Pullen. On Sunday, May 5th, we'll have the newcomer orientation session with Robert. And then on Sunday, May 5th in the afternoon, or as soon as the Dharma talk is over, we're going to be having our next meeting of Engaging the Dharma, which is our way of bringing mindfulness out into the community for mindful action. And there's news about that on the website. On Sunday, May 12th is the second Sunday potluck. And then on Tuesday, May 14th is the monthly NVC practice group with Doyle and Kirsten. We've got the Buddhist movie night happening on May 18th. And then we've got a half-day Qigong retreat, the next one on May 18th. There are Dharma consultations available if you would like to talk with somebody about your practice. Are you open? Jim is available for about 20 minutes today for 2 or 3 people. If you can't do it today, please contact me, and I'll see about arranging something for you. And we have other sits that happen during the week. You can check out the website. And I'd like to say to all of our friends of the Jewish persuasion who are celebrating the Passover, have a wonderful Passover, Chag Sameach. And to Jews and non-Jews alike, may all of us be free in whatever way we need to be free. Blessings.
I'm having a wild and spontaneous idea. Is there anyone in the here today who would like to speak about Dana for 2 minutes? You want to do it? Great. Oh. Thanks.
Dana is generosity, opening your heart, opening your hand. Giving is freedom. And I love this community. And every time we give to this community, we support the network and do it.
Right. Update on the ramp project. It's moving along. The city has the plans again. Some of you may not even know of it. There's going to be doors there instead of those windows, and then there's a ramp that will go down to the living room and then down to the street level. So the building will be wheelchair accessible, and the restrooms will be significantly modified. I mean, walls changing and so. And yeah, that's enough. You can contribute in this bowl here or the box back there or online to the Stewardship Fund. And I have a class. Did you mention my class, Avi, that I haven't gotten you the information on yet? I could make something up if you wanted. No. I'll be offering it's either a 6 or a 7 session class using Ajahn Amaro's book, The Breakthrough. And I'm thinking it's beginner, medium, intermediate, advanced doesn't make sense. But it's for people who've been practicing for at least a couple of years. And it's Amaro's beautiful articulation of really how to turn observing the mind constantly into the practice of daily life. It's an elegant book. So that'll be hitting the streets soon. The info will go out over the listserv. It'll be Wednesday nights starting in 2 weeks, I think. Okay. I have this collection. I have about 350 poems. And I was looking for a particular poem this morning, and I came across this just passing through. It's just touched me. It's called The Earth Salute. I pledge allegiance to the earth, with all the ecosystems on which life depends, and to a future for all of her children. One planet, irreplaceable, with abundance and sustenance for all. Isn't that something? I pledge allegiance to the earth with all the ecosystems on which life depends, and to a future for all her children, one planet, irreplaceable, with abundance and sustenance for all. Come on. Recent. There it is. Over the years that I've been teaching, part of my intention has been to do my best to transmit my deepest understanding of what the Buddha taught. The Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 3 characteristics of existence, the 6 of these and the 7 of that, and that extraordinary, amazing collection of wisdom that's come down to us for 2,600 years. And also with the realization that we do it within a context. We practice. This is a seed, a spore, that took off from Thailand and Burma and India, where I ran into the Dharma, and then landed here in Portland. And it's first generation. And PIMC is freestanding, autonomous. We're part of a loose network of insight meditation communities, but we're really making this up as we go. How to have community, how to practice in the context in which this spore has landed. And it's partially part of my reason for I like to speak a bit about the cultural phenomena that surround us. And on these holidays to try to reframe to some degree the holidays that we are practicing in. And it's partially because so many of us have been wounded by the religions of our childhood, and in many cases there's a cutoff. And one of my Sufi teachers, a couple of decades ago, a guy called Atum O'Kane, said to me that as you deepen in your spiritual practice, there's a few things you will run into for sure. And two of them are your parents, and another one is the religion or no religion of your childhood. And eventually we have to make peace with both. Doesn't mean we have to become best friends, but we have to ultimately put down the resistance or the anger about it, and realize that we and everybody else were doing the best we could. I'm having this image of Atum. This is almost 30 years ago. My then wife and mother of my kids and I were in Bali. We did a month-long Sufi retreat on a beach, one ridge from the ocean. In fact, it's there that I learned the roar of the ocean with 6 or 7 foot waves is not discernible from the roar of the freeway from my home. There is no way to tell the difference. It's very interesting, which then frames it. It's like, oh, we're in the backyard, and surf's up this afternoon. So, we get born, and then we become separate beings, and then we live our lives. And we have underlying us the question, really, who am I? And what happens when I die? What happens to my friends and family when they disappear in the way that we do? And the answers that we come up with, and we human beings are very prolific at creating answers, are the world's religions. And there are and have been tens of thousands of them, lots of little ones and bigger ones. But we struggle to make sense of this. And also, we look for ways to reduce our suffering. And some of the biggest suffering comes around our anxiety about death and loss, and then actually living with it. So I had the adventure in this lifetime. I parachuted into a family with a Catholic mother and a Protestant father. And so I was raised Catholic. It lasted till grade 4, when there was some bad physical abuse happening to me and my sisters at the hands of in my case, the brothers. And then we shifted. I was in Montreal. So we shifted to the Protestant school system, which was Protestant. But I persisted in my Catholic practice till my mid-teens. Until then, that kind of fell apart. But what's that about? And then I became a skier, a mountaineer, and I became a worshiper in the Church of the Great Blue Dome. Right? And then I went overland from Europe to India, and went to go trekking in Nepal, and got very depressed while I was there. And I wound up on a meditation course, and the Dharma came into my life. And then suddenly there was a new floor, and there was a new way of making sense of things, and a new way of practice, which, here we are, that was 1971. So, about 10 years into practice, I had the great good fortune of doing a 10-day Zen Catholic sessions with one very famous Zen teacher, Robert Aitken Roshi, was the first Zen master in the United States, and the Father Bernard McVeigh, who was the abbot of the Trappist monastery west of Portland. And it blew my socks off, because I had never encountered Catholic mysticism. And who knew that there were mystics who had profound awakening in the Catholic tradition? Unfortunately, many of them were burned, but they did leave behind significant writings and teachings. So this Zen session we were doing, does a dog have Buddha nature? Joshu answered, moo. What is moo? So we're doing this moo koan, and then 5 times a day there were readings from the Catholic mystics. And I actually had an incredibly emotional, transformative experience. We had Mass every day, Catholic Mass at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And the first time I went into the church part, there at the front of the church was Jesus on the cross. But it wasn't just any old Jesus on the cross. It was the Jesus on the cross of my childhood. It was off the same production line, exactly. So there was the wound in the side and the thorns, but it really was this. It was purchased at the same place. And I had no idea this was coming, but I fell to my knees sobbing in the middle of the church. I fell to my knees sobbing because I had I understood Catholicism from my 10 years of Buddhist training. And it was this. If you take on a human birth, the only way out of here is death. And one of the central things I always think of when I try to make this bridge is, in the Catholic mythology, the story of how does one become free, it's based on this character, the one and only Son of God, who takes birth, who dies on the cross, who then gets buried, and then on the 3rd day rises. And if we believe on that, then we too can be freed from sin. And then we can live a happier life. And then when we die, we can go up, because the options are up, down, or purgatory. There used to be another option or two, but they were eliminated after a while. So, and millions of people find extreme solace in that. And then the Catholic mystics take that and use those metaphors to go inward and become wise, awakened, loving masters. The Buddha, Siddhartha born, and this is the mythology of Buddhism, right? Siddhartha, born very upper class, prince-like, tries in his lifetime, tries to be happy through the fulfilling of the senses. And he discovers in his late 20s that isn't working. And so he winds up leaving he abdicates his throne, he goes off and practices meditation in the wilderness. And he meets 3 different teachers who teach him very high concentration states. And each time he says, when he masters what they have to teach, he says to his teacher, well, what about sickness, old age, decay, and death? And they say, no, this is it. You have reached the pinnacle. And in each case, he was disappointed and left and went on. And then he thought, well, maybe I'm attached to my body. Maybe if I just never, ever gave into my body, then I'd become free from attachment to it. And he fasted himself to the brink of death. And then he was saved by the young woman, Sujata, who gave him food. And then he went and sat underneath the Bodhi tree. And he had a remembrance when he was a small child. His father was plowing the first furrow, the springtime furrow in the planting ritual, and was kicking up the worms, and the birds were flocking in, and it was very upsetting to this young boy. And he went and sat under a tree and had this experience of things being very spacious and open, and he had this intuition after he'd been rescued from starving to death. He thought, maybe that's it, maybe now. And so he went, and then he sat underneath this tree, the Ficus religiosa. It's a tree that's big trunk, and the branches go out kind of horizontally. And you can see there's one on the west coast of Maui. Anyway, it's like a microclimate underneath it. And he made this vow, I am going to awaken or die. And then there's the whole story of his encounter with Mara and the temptations and so on. But the key thing is that Siddhartha never got up from under that tree. Siddhartha ended there, and then there was the Buddha. In one case, there's this death on the cross, and there's the Christ, and then there's the death of a sort, the metaphorical, the mystical death under the tree, and then there's the Buddha. It's the same story. It's exactly the same story in very different trappings, and if we understand them at the literal level, they're really a different story. But if we see them as what they are, in my understanding, as archetypal mythology, in which every aspect of the story, every character of the story is me, is you, then we can use them as a map of the inner life. And that profound experience I had falling to my knees in the church, that to get it, that, the first thing the Buddha taught was dukkha. Our lives are so shot through with this suffering. That's the cross. I'm in such a privileged position to meet with so many people, members of this community and others, that share with me what's really going on in their lives. And the amount of recent death, impending death, sick children, sick selves, financial ruin, mental illness, punctuated with really beautiful times and great vacations and child getting into college, relationship beginning, that's a big one, relationships beginning and relationships ending with all their agonizing difficulties. That life is really hard. It's really hard, and so what can we do about it? And there's a foundational layer, which is, well, it would be really nice if we all had adequate medical care and a basic living wage and all those very important things. But even when we have those, there's still this dukkha. And we don't talk about it much. It's not cocktail party talk. So often we don't even share with our best friends how depressed we are, how anxious, or and one of the things that's part of the thread of this community is there's more honest talk here, I think, than many of us have. For many people I've met, there's no place else in their life where they get to really talk about what's going on, both in the great successes and in the great pains and hurts. And that then results in intimacy. It's silly, but it's intimacy, really letting ourselves know letting each other know who we are. So the mythology of transcendence, I invite you, if you've never looked, before you leave the building, go out the front door, turn into the restrooms, and turn into the first restroom, and look at the stained glass. How many of you have not seen it? A few. Well, so it won't be too much of a crush. There's this, it's this extraordinary image of the risen Christ. Beautiful. And I've had any number of people when I've given them the tour of the Sunday, are you going to replace that? And I say, what? That's the Buddha. This is the risen Buddha. It's the archetype of awakening. And there is something, there is freedom from death. It's a big thing to say, isn't it? But that's the heart of all mystical traditions. that there is some way that we can, in fact, wake up. So how wonderful that there's this tradition all around us this morning, this mystical tradition, which, of course, most people practice as a religion, which is, it's like a homeopathic dose of the real thing. But still, it leads people to live kinder, more loving, generous lives. There's so much kindness that comes out of that. So back to the liberation aspect of the Buddhist model. Let me read this. I think of it as a kind of a cross-tradition poem. It's by Marilyn Robinson. If one could be shown odd fragments arranged on a silver tray and be told, that is a splinter from the true cross, and that is a nail paring dropped by Barabbas, and that is a bit of lint from under the bed where Pilate's wife dreamed her dreams, the very ordinariness of the things would recommend them. Every spirit passing through the world fingers the tangible and mars the mutable, and finally has come to look, but not to buy. So shoes are worn, and hassocks are sat upon, and finally everything is left where it was, and the spirit passes on. Just as the wind in the orchard picks up the leaves from the ground as if there were no pleasure in the world but brown leaves, as though it would deck, clothe, flesh itself in flourishes of dusty brown apple leaves, and then drops them all in a heap at the side of the house and goes on. Isn't that something? Barabbas was one of the other people on the cross, I think. And Pilate was one of the political figures that... So if one should be shown odd fragments arranged on a silver tray and be told, that is a splinter of the true cross, and that is a nail paring dropped by Barabbas, and that is a bit of lint from under the bed where Pilate's wife dreamed her dreams, the very ordinariness of the things would recommend them. Every spirit passing through the world fingers the tangible and mars the mutable, and finally has come to look and not to buy. So shoes are worn and hassocks are sat upon, and finally everything is left where it was, and the spirit passes on. Just as the wind in the orchard picks up the leaves from the ground as if there were no other pleasure in the world but brown leaves. Is that not a sentence? Phew. Just as the wind in the orchard picks up the leaves from the ground as if there were no other pleasure in the world but brown leaves, as if it would deck, clothe, flesh itself in flourishes of dusty brown apple leaves, and then drops them all in a heap at the side of the house and goes on. Anicca, impermanence. The arc of my own understanding since the beginning of my Dharma practice has been an acknowledgement of this anicca, impermanence. It's such that I'm having this, I've spoken of this quite a few times from this seat, this experience of the temporalness of things, it's becoming more and more and more and more and more apparent, and just events, persons, we're kind of here and then gone, and it's kind of wild. And to the degree that we are attached to things being as they were, then we have to be blurred. We have to get blurred out, because nothing really is lasting more than a nanosecond. And so that in the Buddhist model of liberation is one of the great doorways. That when we realize when it becomes real and we start living according to that, hoarding makes a lot less sense. All kinds of things make a lot less sense if everything's impermanent. All this political strife, it's totally insane. And every side's insane in my observation. People are so violent with each other, and they're forgetting that we really are one living organism. So, there's this practice that we have. And I'm so touched that you're here today, because being here supports us, that this is really important. And we sat together for almost 45 minutes in silence as a group. That's potent. And what are we doing in that? We can frame it as, well, I'm learning to do this so that I can manage my stress better. And what a noble thing to do. What an important thing to do. To be able to have a healthier body, and because we take time we learn to let down. Or we could be saying, well, I'm doing this because I'm hurting psychologically and emotionally, and I really have to get better perspective on this mind because it's driving me crazy, right? It goes off on these self-hating rants, or it worries about this all the time, or it lives in the future, or it lives in the past, and so I'm practicing in order to reduce my suffering psychologically and emotionally. Beautiful use. I'm practicing so that I can cultivate loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, so that I can live more happily with my partner, or my children, or myself. I'm learning to be more loving. Or I'm practicing because the journey is so remarkably interesting. I mean, it's so... I had a great insight. Yeah. Again, I was on the mountain, and I'd been skiing, and skiing is for me a very meditative practice. I've been skiing since I was a small child. And the muscles aren't there, but the timing still is. A couple of hours and it's over. But I had we were ending, and I had my skis off. I was carrying them, and the snow was quite dirty where I was coming to the parking lot. And there was a place where there was ice, and there was lots of grit on it, but I wasn't sure if it would be slippy or not. And as I stepped onto it, there was this clear moment of noticing that there was care, but in the mind was an imagination of slipping backwards, falling, and that sense of the head hitting hard. That all happened in that nanosecond. That's where the care came from, because that's happened. Whew. And I've been noticing something similar to that, stopping at stop signs when there's cars coming. And these are not intentional, but I'm stopping, and then the car goes by, and there's this imagination of that. It's so interesting that that's happening. That's why are we careful? Well, we have these remembrances, and sometimes that can turn into PTSD, of course. But it gets so interesting. And then pulling out the other image for a moment, practicing recognizing that we're all on the cross. And how is it that I want to, how is it that how do you want to face the really great difficulties in your life? How do you want to be when your loved ones are really facing great difficulties? can't remember, I told this story recently. Some of you haven't heard, no doubt. There was, 10 years ago, a person who came to be part of this community. She was a little old, maybe 5 or 7 years older than me. Her daughter had a back problem and they did surgery. And she proceeded to get one of those horrible hospital infections in her back. And it was bad. And she wound up in the ICU. And this student, had family here in town, and they all were freaking out. And she was freaking out along with them. Very hysterical response. And then the daughter recovered, and then the student who had come here was retired, and she went off to the Insight Meditation Society to practice for 18 months. To practice, she went in, she was cooking or something, but she had hundreds or if not thousands of hours of meditation time and heard some of the really great teachers come through. And she came back. She was quite different, much calmer, and that infection had laid dormant in her daughter for these 2 or 3 years, and boom, it suddenly exploded again. And there she was, once again in the ICU, but this person, this admirable person, had a completely different response. She could see the uproar, but she knew she wasn't that uproar, and she could stay very present and tolerate it and become of much greater service. And her children turned on her because they said, "You don't care anymore." Right? Because sometimes we mistake that. So that's a meditator's transformation. Quite remarkable. I lost track of her, but no doubt she's continuing to blossom really beautifully. One more thing on the Easter. How beautiful it is to think that someone could light up like that. Someone could become awakened. Now, the Gnostics who were killed off and taken out of the Bible, they had a totally different take on Jesus, and it wasn't that he was the one and only, it's that we were all the one and only. And that each of us is that. And that changes it, of course, remarkably. And I think that's what the practice side of Buddhism says, which is we have this model, we have the Buddha, and we have a living lineage. It's quite encouraging, right? We can do it, because the Buddha was an ordinary person. He wasn't a one and only. He was an ordinary human being who got disillusioned with his life and went off on a spiritual quest and had a moment of, they call it the moment of going forth, a moment when his inner life became the most important thing in his life. So I want to ask you this. We got some time? Oh yeah, good. How are you discovering the practice freeing you from suffering? What are you noticing in your life of how you're taking this stance of observing reality? How is it manifesting? And I'm partially asking this because of one of the groups that I just finished. That I did it was 8 sessions over 3 months or so. And we ended the class with several people were talking about how their practice had evolved in 15 weeks. And it kind of blew my socks off. How much spaciousness there was. I used to always contract around this, but now I'm not so contracted. So I'm asking for your talk on the Dharma blossoming in you. And if you'd be so kind as to use this sacred talking object. This actually belonged to the Buddha. and is a hand-me-down. 1, 2, 3, it's working just. have to hold it. I'll turn it up a bit, maybe. So, anybody who would like to share, or you could ask a question if that would be more fitting. Connie, please, and please say your name.
I'm Connie, and today I'm having a celebration of my mother's life at my home. At 4 o'clock, I'm giving a eulogy about my mother, and I'm not freaked out about it at all. I have 30 relatives coming from all over to do this celebration, and I can thank the Dharma for being, I'm very grateful that I am able to go through this whole process without suffering. And there's been a few moments in the last 24 hours where I've started to go down a suffering path and been able to just turn and go the other way. It's been really a blessing to have these tools of the Dharma. And to have this community today to come to, and Robert to ground me in what I have to do later on today. Thank you.
My name is Matt, and I guess years ago, before I discovered Buddhism and all that, life, maybe it was ignorance was bliss, but it was life was pretty simple to me. And then along came real life, and real stuff started happening, and things were getting pretty sideways and everything, and so in the process of recovery, with the help of medication and the medical field, at the same time I started to become aware of the Buddha, the power of now, and started studying this. This was about 20 years ago. And I recently have been hearing those terms again, like life should be easy. Life should be simple. We make it too hard on ourselves a lot. And I was questioning that and pondering that. And then after, it came up again today, just now. But I think with the practice, with the Buddha, life can be simpler, quote unquote. It's a way of looking at things, not observing things, putting it out there, and not having it in my mind, in my body, with everything that happens, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the death, whatever challenges are out there. It's like I can objectively pull it out of my mind and like put it in front of me on a table and kind of look at it in all aspects and have an easier time dealing with it. The same complexities are happening, but I have much more capability now with patience, learning the way of the Dharma in the fact that I can be objective. I like the logical connection. Being able to take those hard things and break them down, and so much more perspective. It's not black, white. It's many colors, many answers, many ways to deal with things. It's not. They're just not that hard anymore.
Thank you.
There will be hard times, but I feel more capable of handling them. So.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening.
I'm Emily. This is the first time I've ever said anything here, and I've been coming for like 4 years, so I'm like, well, Okay, it's like, now's the time, yay! Robert, 4 years ago, I accidentally signed up for your silent meditation retreat at Brighton Bush. I thought I was just signing up for like, no one's gonna talk that weekend, but instead it was the like intensive meditation experience, and I had never really meditated before, and it was truly like the most transformative thing that had happened in my life to that point, and I didn't even know that I needed it. And when I came back, I was in a staff meeting and people were like, your hair is even calmer. And so I was like, which I think was amazing. Which I thought was like the best. So not only was there like an internal shift, I guess my hair really likes meditation too. But no, I mean, I think for me, significantly shifted my life in terms of being able to pause, look at things, know myself, be much kinder to myself, and in doing that, open up the possibility of connection and being seen by other people. And what that's also meant for me is a total shift in my career to really aligning with like what I'm supposed to do in the world, and hold ceremony for people. And it's been incredible. And so I thank you, and I thank this community for allowing me that space. And I think the other significant thing that I've noticed is that when I am in a place of turmoil, I do go to the cushion now instead of avoiding. So it would have been like Netflix or like going to my friends. I had always filled my life with busyness and what I thought was connection, but it was kind of avoidance of being alone with myself. And now I can do that when I'm in those moments of struggle, to really give myself self-compassion, but also clarity around things. So, thank you.
Hello, I'm Kirsten. What you shared sparked a desire in me to share as well. Mindfulness practice here in the Sangha and the teaching here has really, kind of like what you said, it's unlocked the potential of what life can be in my life. And I often think of what Ruth says, that Robert quotes a lot, delight in the beauty of your being. And I feel that coming into every part of my life. And this practice has made that possible. There's just more ease around everything that used to be so hard. And it's not like it's not hard anymore, but there's a capacity to, like others have said, there's space around it. And this sort of like, of course, this is the way life is, but I can choose how I respond. And it's one thing to know that, but to have Sangha and to be together with others who know that, but are also working on it, has unlocked so much in my life, so much capacity, so much possibility, so much potential. And I feel at this moment there's a lot of that that's opening up for me, but it feels like it's just from now on, as long as we continue to practice, it'll just be a deeper opening and a bigger opening and a bigger opening, and it is delighting in the beauty of our being.
Hi, I'm Dave. I came here at the start of the year because I'm trying to get myself under control, my weight under control, to become healthier for my children, my family. And I've tried many times before, And I've gotten progress before, but I think I always fall back. And I've tried different things, and I'd make a little progress, and I'd fall back. And I'm starting to understand, I came here for that control, and what I found instead, or maybe what I found first, was love. And I realized the reason I kept falling back was there was a great big rubber band tied around me to whatever's behind me. And that rubber band was self-criticism, self-hatred, and it never occurred to me that I could cut the rubber band. And that's, I think, what I'm doing. It's thick. And there might be some Kevlar in there. But I'm getting there, and I think I'm going to cut it eventually. Or not. Whatever.
Let me invite us to be aware of what's happening inside us in this moment. We're engaged in a practice of speaking and hearing, rather than just sitting in meditation. We're speaking and hearing. And then the person who's speaking finishes what she or he says, and then there's silence. And we could feel anxious, we could feel all kinds of things. Or we could just notice, oh, it's silence now. I know what to do. I have my body, I can drop into my body. Someone, maybe several people may be thinking, well, I have this thing I'd like to share, but I'm too embarrassed, and what's wrong with me? I always, that could be happening. Or so many different possibilities, and simply to be present with them is the practice. There's so much violence, it's so endemic to us as humans in a certain way, that I should be different, or this circumstance should be different, and the circumstance and I are actually as we are right now. Oh, and it's time for the kids. Was that the kids? They're in the chute. So, thank you so much for coming today, for gracing this room with your beautiful presence and your willingness to stop and look in. It's so rare, right? There's so many channels to tune into and so many things to consume, and you know, not that there's anything wrong with lots of that, but actually to come together and stop. Phew. Strengthening of me, certainly. So I invite you to make a big circle, and anyone who would like to come in and sit with the kids. It's nice, it's fun in there. And there's not many kids today. And then there's some snacks after, and some very fine people that you might like to talk with. Thank you, dear friends at home, out there in internet land. Very nice of you to be with us. Yay! There'll be competition blowing out the candle now, I see. Oh, 2 strong guys. It's going to be heavy. Heavy competition. Oh, that's right. So let's become aware of hands. Yay! Hi, sweetheart. Oh, cool. Oh, would someone bring me the microphone, please? The hand mic. Thank you. Yeah. Are you going to sing today? Yay. All right. Can I hold your hand before we get to the singing? Thank you, Rebecca. Those of you might not know Rebecca. Rebecca is our new teacher for the children's program, and she has hundreds of years of experience of working with young school-age children, and she's just so to walk into that room is like, oh, I want to be here. It's really very lovely. Thank you. Lots of skills too. So let's be grateful for hands. How nice to have this hand on the right and hand on the left. Let's wish the person on the right your highest wish. What would that be? And the person on your left, giving them a blessing. And then around our circle, hand to hand and heart to heart. We're all in this together. We parachute into a separate birth and then we live out a lifetime. So why not love each other? And let's extend these wishes outwards to the homes around us, to this city, to this country, to all of our brothers and sisters and friends and uncles and aunts who fly in the sky, who live in the ground, who walk, who run, who swim, to all of our relations. And are we ready?
May all
Beings be happy.
May all beings be happy.
May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wow, thank you. That was lovely. All right, and now the ancient ritual. Everyone gets to make a wish, and everyone in the outer circle has to help. You have to breathe in, and at home, ready? Breathing in. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes, fantastic, yay. So lovely to see you all here. Come again, please come and have some tea and coffee and goodies.